Hey all, and welcome to my review of Martin Scorsese's Hugo, his first children's film as well as his first film shot in 3D, not to mention apparently a very, very pricey one, despite it being in mostly limited release at the moment, although expanding this week if you want to see it. But that comes to the question, do you want to see it? Apparently you should, apparently so. A lot of the critics say so. Rotten Tomatoes, it currently has a 93% on the tomato meter, and that is not something to scoff at. However, should you? Now, granted, I am obviously not the one that probably is the most qualified person to tell you if you should or not, but I figure since you're watching this video, I might as well anyway. So, what is this movie about? As the trailer would imply, it is about a young boy recently orphaned, the titular Hugo, who lives in a train station and repairs clocks for a living, and he's basically a thief, steals food in and around, and dealing with the loss of his father, as well as his interaction with a number of characters, including the rather lovable but also misguided train security guard played by Sacha Baron Cohen, Gustav, with his pet guard dog Maximilian. And he is always trying to hunt down Hugo and any orphans in the train station. As well, Hugo also, and the main thrust of the movie, has to deal with a toy shop owner and his past. The real mystery is that Hugo has found and is inherited rather an automaton that his father found at a museum. The automaton is not fully repaired, so Hugo steals parts from this toy shop owner to repair it. But he has ended up missing a crucial piece. The movie progresses from there. It's actually a mystery movie more often than not. The movie bills itself as a light-hearted adventure film, and it is in many circumstances, but the real thrust, I can only assume, is that of the mystery at the core of the story. And this is a little bit of a problem, and actually my biggest problem with the movie. Frankly, because the trailer bills itself as a light-hearted adventure film, we're going to go on an adventure. I love movies with enthusiasm, particularly children's movies. Too much fun. Too intoxicating for me. But, child at heart, what can I say? But, like I said, that's the real problem with the movie, because a lot of it, there are those moments where Hugo says, oh, we're going to have fun, we're going to go on an adventure, and it's going to be great. But then more often than not, the movie slows down to understand people's backstories and characters, and there's a million different subplots going on, and it's not that I can insult any of these things in particular. All the side characters are fantastic. You have Ben Kingsley as the toy shop owner, Sacha Baron Cohen as the train guard, again, fantastically lovable. Sacha Baron Cohen is. Ben Kingsley does a fantastic job as a very side role. Christopher Lee is a bookshop owner. How can you not love Christopher Lee? And then you have this mystery, which itself is very fascinating and leads to a really interesting point and really showcases the magic of cinema. And I love that. I really do. I've always believed in the power of cinema, to be perfectly honest. I review movies on YouTube. That is just a perfect example of it. I care enough about them that I like to share my thoughts on them. I interact with the movies. I watch tons of different types of movies, and I'm sure everyone can at least relate to the fact that they have one or two movies or more that they have seen that they will love and carry with them forever. I mean, it's not necessarily something that you're going to shed a tear at or something like that, but just things that are very close to them and that affect them on some level every time they watch it. Everyone has those types of movies. I have a ton of them, assuredly, and that movie really communicates that kind of love for cinema. So what you're asking is the problem. Again, it's the focus. Because it's marketed as a lighthearted adventure film, it really doesn't play to that a whole lot. It is charm to spare. Honestly, every character, they're quirky, but not in like a terrible, oh, they're quirky and you're just trying too hard kind of way. Very much so in this case, they actually make a difference to the plot, a beneficial difference to your viewing experience. And again, fantastic plot in general. It's just that it seems to me that the titular character should not be shunted aside for the climax of the film. And that's essentially what happens. I won't say any more lest I spoil anything, but it seems like Hugo really doesn't do a whole lot in this movie. He's rather a passive hero. Things tend to fall into his lap. Other people work things out for him, or pure happenstance to the utmost degree. Really, Deus Ex Machina really just pops in and, oh, okay, well, that solves that. And yet I can't hate on the movie too much because all of the individual pieces are just done so well. And like I said, all the actors do a fantastic job, with the exception of Hugo. Don't like that kid. He's not a bad actor, but I just don't like the way they portray him. He's, again, very inert and just not really that likable, frankly. And especially when put up against this, these rainbow of great actors, Christopher Lee, Ben Kingsley, Ray Winstone, so on, as well as the child actor Chloe Moretz. I mean, Chloe Moretz is fantastic. So when you're putting him up against these people, he really does seem to be a little lacking, and that's unfortunate. Because because you don't even, it's hard to articulate why this movie. What I'd have to break it down to is, the focus is not necessarily there for a long, it's like 2 hours and 10 minutes. For a children's movie, that's quite in depth. For a longer, mystery-styled movie with a main character that doesn't really solve any mysteries. And he does have a bit of persistence, which is necessary for this type of character, but not a whole lot other than that. Not insufferable, just rather bland, and unfortunately not nearly as interesting as everyone he's around. That said, I'm sure, he's necessary for the plot to continue. It's just unfortunate that you couldn't really form a connection with him, because I think that's one of the bigger things holding the movie back. This lack of focus and this lack of charm on Hugo's part himself really doesn't engender you to the movie. It doesn't make you love it like you should. I mean, honestly, I love everything about this movie for the most part. I love the setting. I think the effects are fantastic. Particularly the 3D is actually quite amazing. Multiple times throughout the movie, I was just thinking to myself, wow, like that looks really, really cool. And that really doesn't happen very often. There's only been a couple 3D movies that's actually done that for me. I love the music in this. All of the acting on every other person's part is just uniformly fantastic. And being a sucker for cinema in general and the arduous task of making it, as well as an admirer of silent cinema and the origins of cinema, rather the progenitors of certain genres and certain types of movies, I love the history of it. It really appealed to me in that way, too. It's just that it just never really grabbed me in an I love it kind of way. It's right on the border, but unfortunately, again, this lack of focus, it's too long, and Hugo not really being that great, it just unfortunately mired the movie for me. But that said, again, I wholeheartedly recommend you do see this movie, because honestly, that could be just a personal preference. And by and large, this movie is very fantastic. Again, the production design is beautiful. You can clearly tell they spent tons of money into this. There's just really awesome design elements. The lighting is so memorable, and there's always this kind of people wearing blue clothing in the train station up against the other people. It's just a beauty to behold. Really is. There's not a single portion of the movie where I thought to myself, that only looks okay. Every single scene is just absolutely beautiful, especially in combination with the 3D, which again is fantastic. So, should you see Hugo? Yes. That's all there is to it. Yes, you should see it. 93% on Rotten Tomatoes? I don't know if I put it quite that high. And again, solely because of this lack of general focus, or rather, there's not a single adventurous thrust. It's more a general mystery that slowly comes together from different pieces everywhere. And the fact that Hugo himself is not especially well acted, or especially interesting in and of himself, outside of that he moves the rest of the plot along. Martin Scorsese, though, fantastic attempt. Definitely a great job. I salute you. You made a great film. Unfortunately, it just didn't really catch me. But should you see it, give it a try. Totally worth it. And see it in 3D. One of the few things I will insist. I cannot imagine buying this, watching this, without the 3D at this point. It's that memorable.